Thanks, guys. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm glad to be here. I usually hang out with college students. They're now gone for the summer, so I get to be here tonight and to hang out with you guys. Really excited to talk about this topic tonight because without a doubt, a big part of my quarter life crisis involved the topic that we're going to talk about tonight, and that is the topic of money. And so when I moved here to Dallas in 2002, I just want to kind of set up the context of my story a little bit and let you guys in on how this topic of money created such a crisis in my life. So I moved here to Dallas in 2002 to go to seminary. Moved here to go to seminary, and a picture of my financial situation when I moved here was I was moving here and I had no full-time job. I was going to be a full-time student, maybe do some part-time work. I had very little money in my savings account. In fact, the little bit I had, I burned through right away because I didn't have a job. I had about $20,000 in student loan debt, and I was driving a car that was about 9 years old and had well over 100,000 miles on it. And so that was kind of my financial situation. I was easily one of the most eligible bachelors in Dallas showing up with that resume. And so it will not surprise any of you that I got a date like right away. So after being here a few months, I met this phenomenal girl. Her name was Jackie, and there was like everything about her was amazing. And I knew from the beginning that this relationship was going to be very, very different. And so Jackie was beautiful. She loved Jesus. She had a servant's heart. She laughed at my jokes. She liked peanut butter. She tolerated that I was a NASCAR fan. I mean, all this kind of stuff it was amazing. I knew this relationship, like God was in it. But there was something even better about her than all of that other stuff. And the thing that was better, the thing that was just the icing on the cake, is that she was an attorney. All right? And so, I mean, hey, no shame here, all right? I was thinking, this is my sugar mama, okay? I don't know about you guys, but this was Psalm 37:4 just playing out, like, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And at the time, I mean, moving here, I did not know that the desires of my heart were a beautiful attorney that was going to just pay off my debt, buy me a new car, but it sure sounded awesome. And I thought, this is exactly the way God works, right? This is it. You follow his will. You move to Dallas. You seek to become a pastor. He blesses you with a rich wife, okay? And so it's in my Bible. I don't know about yours, but that's in my Bible. So this relationship was amazing, and things started heating up real quick and getting real serious real quick. And so it came time in the relationship that Jackie and I had to sit down and share our financial situation. And I was really excited about this conversation, okay? And so it got to that night, and I remember sitting on the couch going, all right, here's my situation. I really don't have any income right now, nor do I have any prospects of great income because I'm in seminary, okay? So I've got that. I've got a used car. I got $20,000 in student loan debt, and at this point, I've got nothing in savings, okay? So there's my situation, yada, yada, yada. You love me. All right, let's go. What's yours? What's yours, okay? I want to hear yours. And that conversation didn't go anywhere close to how I thought it was going to go. She told me about her income, and I was like that. What's that number? No, that's your bonus, right? That's not your income. That's your annual bonus. No. So she had like this much, much lower income than I thought. Her car that she was driving was a lease. She had no savings. She had about $3,000 or $4,000 in credit card debt, and then get this: she had $100,000 in student loan debt. Have you guys heard of Texas A&M? Yeah, she didn't go there, okay? You guys are whooping because that place is cheap and you got no debt, all right? All the different colleges in Texas that she could have chosen to go to, she said, I'm gonna go to the 2 private colleges. I'm gonna go do my undergrad at Baylor, and then I'm gonna go to SMU Law School, which is, no, don't clap. This was debt, okay? This was a lot of money. That stuff is expensive. And so here we are, I'm sitting there going, all right, well, I thought you were gonna be my sugar mama. And she's like, I thought you were gonna be my sugar daddy. And we're sitting there going, we got no sugar. There's nothing. And so you know what we did? We got married. Because all we needed was love, right? That was gonna carry us through. So here we are, late 20s. late 20s, we get married, and our financial situation is, relatively low income, considering the amazing degree that she had. There is no real prospects of major income, really, in the future. There's one lease and a used car that's getting pretty old. There's no savings, and there's $120,000 in student loan debt, and we did not have a plan. And I don't know about you guys, but to me, that really felt like a crisis. When I imagined where I was going to be in my late 20s financially, that was not where I thought I was going to be. That was not the script that I would have written. And so the quarter life crisis for me had a tremendous amount of pressure with it. Because I looked at this situation, this financial situation, and it just felt very hopeless. And I know, and I share that story because I know that there's some of you tonight that your quarter life crisis regarding money may be exactly the same as mine, where your situation is riddled with anxiety and frustration and pressure because you too have a tremendous amount of debt. You too don't have a plan. You too feel like it's just this mountain that you're never, ever, ever going to be able to get out of. And so maybe that's some of the circumstances surrounding your crisis. Or maybe for you, your situation, maybe you don't have a lot of debt, but there's just a lot of fear and anxiety every time you watch the news or read the Wall Street Journal or read the newspaper, and you start to hear about what's going on in the economy, the state of the dollar. You're watching where the markets are going. You're wondering what's going to happen if there's another terrorist attack. What's going to happen if the global economy really starts to collapse like certain people think that it will. And so for you, your crisis is you're sitting there and you are just fearful. And what you want is you want more money to try to protect yourself. And so that may be part of your crisis. For some of you, it may be that you don't have debt or maybe the fear isn't getting you, but you just always feel like you're trying to catch up financially. For you, it just feels like you cannot get ahead. You can't get anything in a savings account. It always feels like there's a bill that needs to be paid, and you're often running out of money before the next paycheck. And it's just exhausting, and you don't know how you're gonna get out of it. Or for some of you, it may just be you're just generally discouraged because it seems like you feel like in your friend group, you're the only one that has to say no. You're the only one that can't do what it seems like everybody else is doing. And so we all may have a different circumstance leading to our quarter life crisis with money. We all might have different circumstances, but what I want to share with you all tonight is that the step out of our crisis, regardless of the circumstances, the step out of our crisis, in fact, the first step out of our crisis is going to be the exact same no matter what your circumstances are. So if you've got a tremendous amount of debt, or if you're just afraid, or if you're discouraged, or you feel like you're always catching up, or maybe there's some other scenario and you feel like you're in a financial crisis right now, regardless of the circumstances, the first step for you is the exact same first step as it was for Jackie and I. And it's this biblical principle that we're gonna look at tonight. And in my time in ministry, and I had an opportunity to lead the MoneyWise ministry here at Watermark for about 18 months. And so in my time in ministry and helping out with that MoneyWise ministry, and in my time dealing with young adults through the Merge class, I have seen that this principle time and time again provide a tremendous amount of motivation for people to take that first step out of their crisis and begin to experience some freedom from that crisis financially. In fact, this principle was an enormous motivator for Jackie and I. And so shortly after we got married, we just ignored our debt situation for about 6 months. And then 6 months after we had been married, we came into this church in the summer of 2004. And one of the leaders of this church was teaching the principles that we're gonna look at tonight. And it rattled our cages, and it provided inspiration for us to do something about the debt. And so we went home armed with this principle, and we went home and we said, okay, we've got to do something about this. And we started running some numbers and figuring out some different scenarios, and we started praying, and we started having conversations with a lot of our friends, and we made that, what at the time to us, we felt like some really drastic changes in our life. And I dropped out of seminary, and Jackie left her job and found a new job. And by the grace of God, in the late fall of 2004, we made our very first aggressive debt payment on that $120,000 in student loan debt. In March of 2008, we made our last debt payment. And so in less than 4 years, we were able to pay that off. Thank you. Thank you for clapping for me doing something I'm legally obligated to have to do, is pay that back. So I wore my seatbelt today. All right, thank you. That's amazing. It's such an encouraging crowd. I love it. Okay, and so that's this principle. So let's talk about that principle. If you got your Bibles, open up to 1 Chronicles chapter 29. And we're going to look at this amazing prayer of David. And Shane was referencing it a little bit during worship. And so here's the situation of what's going on in Israel. In the history of Israel, this is an enormous moment for them. Enormous moment for them. They are settled in Jerusalem. David, their king, is a good king. They had been wandering for years, and now they're starting to put down roots. David has built a grand palace for himself, and he has decided that it is now time to build a permanent structure for God. It is now time to build a temple for God, because the Israelites at this point had to go and worship him in a tent, and they felt like, hey, that's probably not great. He's the God of the universe. He owns everything. Maybe we should build him a permanent structure. And so David and the leaders went through this enormous building campaign type thing where they raised all of this money. And so here's this commemorative ceremony where David has gathered all the leaders together. They have raised all the money, and they are about ready to launch into the building of this permanent structure for God. It's a huge moment in the history of Israel. And it also happens to be the last recorded prayer that we have of King David. So these are some of his final words. And what we're going to see in this prayer, we're just going to look at 6 or 7 verses tonight. We are going to see this principle that if we embrace this, will be the first step out of our quarter life crisis when it comes to money, and will completely transform the way we view money and possessions. So let's look at this. 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 10. This is David. David praised the Lord in the presence of the whole assembly, saying, "Praise be to you, Lord, the God of our father Israel, from everlasting to everlasting. Yours, Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the majesty and the splendor." Get this next verse. If you don't mind underlining in your Bible, you may want to underline this phrase. For everything in heaven and earth is yours. For everything in heaven and earth is yours. Yours, Lord, is the kingdom, and you are exalted as head over all. Wealth and honor come from you. You are the ruler of all things. In your hands are strength and power to exalt and give strength to all. Now, our God, we give thanks and praise your glorious name. And then look at this. But who am I? And who are my people that we should be able to give as generously as this? Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. We're foreigners and strangers in your sight, as were all of our ancestors. Our days on earth are like a shadow without hope. Lord our God, look at how he wraps this up. All this abundance that we've provided for building you a temple for your holy name, it comes from your hand. And all of it belongs to you. So I don't know where your circumstances are, but the principle that we have to embrace, the first step for any of us in getting out of our quarter life crisis when it comes to money, has to be a deep, deep, deep understanding that we are not owners of anything. David understood in the midst of this enormous moment where there was all of this money and they were about ready to embark on this crazy building program. David understood that all of that was God's. They didn't bring anything to the table. David understood he was broke. All he did, and all the rest of the leaders of Israel did, is they just took what God and his grace and his mercy had given to them, and they just turned right back around and gave it back to God. The thing that David understood that I know it took me so long to understand and embrace, and I know so many people struggle with, is that our relationship with money and possessions is not to be one of ownership. It is to be one of stewardship. Let me define what I mean by a steward. A steward is this. It is somebody who manages another's property and seeks to manage that property according to the owner's vision and values. That's basically what David was praying here. God, everything in heaven and earth is yours. It's all yours. Wealth and honor come from you. God owns it all. God is the one who loans it all to you. He's the one who distributes it all to you. Everything comes from your hand. We've only given you what comes from your hand. And all this abundance that you've provided for your temple comes from your hand, and it all belongs to you. Our relationship is not to be one of ownership, it is to be one of stewardship. And like that blew my mind the first time I heard that. And it completely flipped all of my preconceived notions about my relationship with money and possessions. It just turned them all upside down. And became this enormous motivator for Jackie and I to finally do something about this debt situation that we were in. And it transformed every category. I mean, it was so far reaching, it completely changed the way we thought about income. I don't know about you guys, but right after I graduated from college, I was an accounting major, and so I was working in the accounting industry. And so when I first graduated from college, I thought that income was a scoreboard. When I had that ownership mentality, my income was a scoreboard. It was something to tell you all how successful I was. It became this numerical determination of my value to the world. And every time I got a raise or a bonus, there was something in me that just kind of wanted to well up and bow up and just kind of be like, yeah, that's right. They're finally starting to see the value that I bring to this organization. I think they owe me more. Like income became this thing that made me arrogant. But if we understand that we're not owners and we are stewards, then it completely changes the way we think about income. Income's no longer a scoreboard, it is now an enormous responsibility. This is money that the creator of the universe has given to me because he trusts me. And he wants me to use that not according to my vision and values, but according to his vision and values. Completely changed the way we thought about income. Completely changed the way we thought about spending and stuff. I don't know about you guys, but the way I grew up, money equaled fun. That was the way that I saw it. And I didn't even grow up in Dallas. Right? I grew up in Maryland, up in the Washington, D.C. area, and I understood that totally threw me off. I am so sorry about that. I was like, are they whooping? Did I say A&M by accident? I didn't know what the whoop was, so I'm sorry. Okay, again, forgive me. So, all right, so I grew up in the D.C. area, and it was just like this, like money was just this fun thing. This was a way to go out and have a blast. I mean, and I still, just as full confession, I still am so excited about buying new things. Like just like last week, Jackie, I came home and she told me the wonderful news that our vacuum cleaner was acting up. And I was like, yes, we're gonna go buy a new vacuum. This is amazing, okay? So if you're worried about still being single, that's what you got to look forward to, being excited when you get married about vacuums. But like I was thrilled going, like researching it, and we got this Shark thing that was just amazing because it's called Shark and it sucks everything up. And I was so excited to get home that day and put that thing together and go around and vacuum and all to the glory of God, you know? And so it was just all of this stuff. It just felt fun, but that's like the ownership mentality is that these goods and the spending is here for me, to make me happy, to feed my emotions. But if we understand that we're stewards, then it's every spending decision, really, it's a question of, all right, God, is this what you want me to do with your money? Is this going to honor you? So it changed our view of income. It changed our view of spending, completely changed our view of debt. When I went to college, when I left for college, my mom and dad gave me a credit card. It had my name on it and everything. A little Visa, Chase Visa card. And they were like, had $500 on it. It was amazing. That was so much money to me. And they gave it to me and they said, Adam, this is for emergencies. They didn't define emergency, okay? But it was all I knew was it was for emergency. So when I graduated from college, I somehow had $3,000 on that card that started off with $500, because to me, an emergency, like debt was this tool to get what I wanted without waiting. It was this tool to live one or two income levels above where I actually was. And so, anytime I saw an emergency, hey, my friends are going on spring break, I want to go with them, I don't have money in the bank. Emergency, swipe. And hey, I need new basketball shoes. Emergency. And, just swipe. And it ended up with, it was just this tool. It felt like everybody else was doing it. That was the ownership mentality. And then when we start to understand and embrace stewardship, we start to realize that God actually has something to say about debt. And what he says is it's dangerous. And it's not something to be entered into lightly. Proverbs 22:7 says, the rich rule over the poor. Listen to this this is emotional language. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. The debt, it traps us, and that's certainly what we felt when we were facing that $120,000 in student loan debt. And so it became this enormous change in the way that we view debt. But the category that I think it probably changed us the most was the way that we thought about generosity. What I saw growing up when it came to generosity was every once in a while giving money to somebody that asked. I didn't grow up as a follower of Jesus, but I had one great example growing up that I'll never forget. My aunt, my mom's sister, was a follower of Jesus, and I would still to this day describe my Aunt Linda as being one of the most generous people on the face of the earth. And she was very vocal about her generosity, or very excited to be a giver. And to me, as like a little kid, when I was watching this, it meant that she gave great Christmas gifts, and when she babysat, she gave like twice as much ice cream as my mom would give me. And so to me, generosity was like Jesus, he gives a lot of ice cream, and they give good Christmas gifts. But that's basically all I saw of generosity growing up. And so when I went to college, and right through the middle of my college career, when I became a follower of Jesus, I started to hear about this thing called generosity and thought, all right, this is something I probably should do. I should probably start giving. And so I developed, early on in my walk with Jesus, I developed what I thought was the single most generous, greatest generosity plan ever. And it was this, is I would go to the ATM machine on a Friday night, and I would get all my money out for the weekend. And I had this agreement with God that anything I had left over on Sunday night, because I went to church on Sunday night, anything I had left over on Sunday night, I would give to him. I'd give to the church. And so I'd put that money in my pocket, and I'd go all Friday night, all day Saturday night, all day Sunday, and whatever I had in my pocket, I'd walk into church that night, and I'd drop that little money in there. And most of the time, it was nothing. Oftentimes, it was $1 or $2. But I will never forget the night I walked in and there was a $5 bill in my pocket. And I was so nervous because up to that point, I had never given away that much money. And so I'm walking in there just going, is it ones or five? No, it's a five. All right, did I tell anybody about this plan? I think, well, God knows. All right, so I walk in there and I walk over to the little table and I'm like, huh? And I kind of look around and I put the $5 bill in there. And I was just kind of walking around like, yep, that just happened, all right? $5, 5 whole dollars I just gave to God. You are welcome, okay? And thought they were going to name the building after me or something like that. And so to me, my mindset with generosity, which is what I think is the mindset with so many of us when we take an ownership mentality, is this. My mindset was live first, give leftovers. Make sure I'm taken care of, and then just give whatever is left over. But if we understand that we're not owners of anything, but we're rather stewards of everything, then it flips that around and it says, no, your first priority is generosity, and you live off whatever else is left over. Here's the thing that I've noticed about generosity. When somebody really understands stewardship, this is the first area where you see the evidence of stewardship. I would go so far to say this is the best indicator that you understand that you are a steward, not an owner, is how generous you are. There's something about generosity. It's in the way that we're wired. It's in the way that we're wired, and there's something about generosity that what we start to realize when we understand this concept, And we understand that God, in his grace and in his mercy, he is inviting us in to be a part of what he is doing. His vision and values is for the needy and for the oppressed and for those who are slaves to their sin to be set free. That's his vision and values. And in this amazing, amazing thing, God says, guess what? I'm gonna entrust resources to you, and you get to be a part of this amazing thing of watching needs be met. So I've got two boys, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and last year we were at White Rock Lake, and we were standing by the water, and there were some ducks around, and this woman was there with her children, and she was throwing out all this bread to the ducks. And the kids, this woman was there with her kids, and they were throwing out bread to the ducks. And so my two boys, I did not plan appropriately. I did not have any bread to give to the ducks. And so my two boys are watching these other boys just have a blast just freely giving out to the ducks and seeing the joy that they have. And I'm watching this situation just starting to feel smaller and smaller, like I'm such a terrible parent because I didn't bring any bread for my kids to give out. And my boys are watching this, and I know where this is going. This is gonna go to like freak out, and I'm gonna have to leave. So I'm kind of like, all right, boys, let's go. Yeah, it looks like they're having a blast. And so this woman, in her kindness, she looked at my two boys watching, and she just took a piece of bread out, and she just gave it to my boys and said, here, you can have some fun too. And then my boys sat there, and they started giving it out. And I was like, what a great picture of what God is doing with us. That he is taking his bread. I mean, he could solve all the world's problems on his own. But for some crazy reason, he loves to use us. And he's inviting us into this. And he's saying, hey, here's some bread. You get to have a blast as you're generous, and you get to go out there and help people. Here's the thing you guys will understand about generosity. It is the most fun you will ever have with money. That's it. It's the most fun you will ever have. And I want to show you that, not just tell you that. And so watch this. Don't miss this, guys. There is nothing that you could buy. There is no car you could drive, no article of clothing that you could own. There's no apartment that you could live in or home that you could buy. There's no restaurant you could eat at. There's no vacation you could go on. That when you completed that transaction, it would give you the satisfaction and the joy that generosity does. That's what I'm looking for when I go to North Park. That's what I'm looking for when I start to think about what can I buy? What can I buy? What else can I add to my life? I am hoping that thing that I purchase is gonna provide some sort of an emotional satisfaction and lift and fulfillment, and it never, ever does. Because I have been wired and you have been wired not to be owners, but rather to be stewards. When we embrace this life and money and possessions, and our relationship with that stuff is one of ownership, it leads to crisis. It leads to crisis, it leads to discontentment, it leads to frustration, it leads to fear, it leads to anxiety. And for every single one of us, the first step out of that is to understand that we're not owners, we're stewards. So I don't know which one of the people in that video you identify with more. Maybe for some of you, you identify with that, with the widow, with the worker. And you feel like you're just behind and there is no hope for your situation. And what I want to remind you of is what that sweet lady put as her license plate. Jireh, Jehovah Jireh, the name of God that is the Lord provides. So if you're in a situation that seems hopeless and you think God has fallen asleep at the wheel with your financial situation, I just want to remind you that you worship the God of the universe who owns everything. and that you are more important than the birds of the air and the flowers of the field, that Jesus told us if God feeds and clothes those, then he is going to feed and clothe you. He's not forgotten you. And maybe some of you, though, in this room feel more like the bakery owners, where you have been entrusted with more resources, and you have an opportunity to change hundreds, if not thousands of lives with a complete and total reordering of your financial world. And if that's you, I just want to remind you of also what Jesus said, that to whom much is given, much is expected and entrusted. And with a room this size, guys, with this many people in here, if just a few of you embraced the stewardship and flipped everything around and understood that you were stewards and not owners, I'm telling you, things will change in this city. You guys talk about changing the world through the lives of young adults. I think God wants to work in and through the resources that he has entrusted to you. You guys have an enormous responsibility, and I want you to feel that pressure. I don't want you to walk out of here tonight just feeling the same, of just going, hey, I'm a scoreboard. This stuff is here for me. It's not for you. And God, in his grace and mercy, he's invited you in. You get to participate. There's something in you that comes alive when you are seeking to be generous. But the flip of that is also true. There's something in each and every one of us that is dead if we are not embracing this stewardship. So our relationship is not to be one of ownership, it is to be one of stewardship. Our job is to get to know the owner and seek to manage those resources that he has given us, not according to our vision and values, but according to his vision and values. Let's pray that we can do that, will you? God, you're the owner of it all. We just confess that here tonight before you. You own everything. And so there is no need in this room that is too big for you. And the resources that you have given to us are not just to make our life easier or more comfortable. And so God, as we were praying before this night started, change us. Call us out, Lord. Rattle our cages and help us, Lord, to see that what we've been entrusted with, that can change the world. God, help us to be generous, because that is such a phenomenal representation of who Jesus is. And God, we worship you for your generosity. And thank you that you have paid a debt for all of us that we could not pay. And thank you for sending your son, Jesus. Change us, Lord. Use us, Lord, please. Amen.